Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to Wiki Up Knoll Off Grid. It is a beautiful, breezy, and partially cloudy day here, and we are excited to be working in such mild weather. We will be starting our day and our update here in the Subterranean greenhouse, where we've been working feverishly at our slow progress pace with these bags. And last week we left off down here where we were working on our ramp, which I just walked down. The ramp is always going to be there at this point. We may change our minds later and add steps. But in my experience with greenhouses, we want to have an easy way to move wheelbarrows, carts, and that kind of thing in and out of the space. And this being a subterranean space, I'd like this to remain a ramp if possible. So that's what we're working for. And today we're going to start on our rubble layers, which you can see in various versions of shadow here in the morning. And we will be bagging a retaining wall up these ramp walls as well, but we are going to be using a narrower bag. The rest of our bags in the greenhouse that we're going to be tying into for this section are with I think like a 12 to 14 inch finished bag is the thickness here. And these bags are narrower, smaller. So we can't use our bucket system that we do for these big bags. We had to devise something smaller. So what I did a couple of years ago when I was starting the pole barn, I got a length of 4-inch pipe. It's technically a sewer pipe, new sewer pipe. That's key. And I duct taped a stovepipe reducer to the top so that I could create a funnel effect in there. And I cut it so that it would crimp and go inside the 4-inch pipe, because this was a 4-inch to a 6-inch, it's a reducer, 6-inch to 4-inch pipe. And you can see where it's dented from use of putting dirt in there. And then at the bottom, I added a coupler just to add a little more tension to my bag when it's on there, so that when I pull it out, it's able to stretch the bag a little and fill it a little more. So that's the system I've made in order to deliver the soil and earth material into the bag system. And that's what we'll be using for this section. It's going to be a little different. We're going to have to fiddle with our delivery system and how we're putting the dirt in and what would be best, because I can't prop that system up like I can those big 12-inch buckets that I normally use. So we may adjust a little bit as we go, but the idea is to do the walls, or at least start the walls here, so that we can tie into these walls before we make them any higher. So you'll see that shortly. All right, you can see I ran out of bags there. I reloaded everything. Shadows are there, but you can see it's starting to shape up. It's forming against that side wall. This next row, I'll be tying it into this wall, going in a little further, and then back out again and up on to the top. So we're going to keep on in this manner, and you can see it in fast mode. Hey, John is up there moving our boomer collection of sticks back away from the edge so we can get the wheelbarrow to that side, because we're now at the level on this side where we can't go any higher until we do more of this wall. So I think you can see through our crazy shadows here that we've now overlapped the smaller bags with the larger bag wall system here. We've gone all the way up near the top. We ran out of bags, so it's a good time to stop. And then before we go any higher here, we'll do another bag this way, overlapping here. And then by the time we get both walls all the way up to this corner, they'll both walls will be zigzagged and sort of zippered together all the way up. So we're at a stopping point on this wall for now. We're going to switch gears and do the same thing to this wall. And you can see here, I've got a tie-in place right there. So we're going to be doing the same thing over here in just a moment. All right, we have run out of bags for the first round. Good stopping point to show what's going on. You can see I'm almost at the level here where I'm going to be tying in this wall to that wall and then continuing it on up just like we did over here. You may have noticed too, thought I'd mention, I'm using the watering can after we put the material in this time, because one thing about these smaller bags, it's going through a smaller 4-inch pipe in this instance, and if we wet the material too much, like we do wet it pre bucket system on the big bags, if we do that on this one even just a little bit, it gets stuck inside the pipe and it doesn't come out consistently. You have clogs. It's been a big drama. It was a drama when we were doing the pole barn. So that's one thing I learned about that. Put it in more dry and then water the bag after it's laid and then tamp it. So that is a difference that you're probably noticing. We're going to continue up and see if we can get this one tied in and be ready to continue on our north walls. Okay, that round of bags took me all the way to the top of the ramp to ground level. For real this time, this will be the last bag section we do for the little bags today, because I'll be tying it in just a moment. Making progress. These go so much faster because it's so much less material, obviously. But it's very gratifying after doing the big bags for a little while to see so much distance covered in such a short amount of time. So it'll be nice to take a break from these every so often to get a boost of encouragement on a speedy coverage area. All right, yesterday's breezes and clouds were wonderful to work in, but they blew in 1/10 of an inch of rain, which doesn't sound like a whole lot to most places in the country. But for here, it's wonderful, and especially in November. So that's pretty cool. And everything got re-wet and kind of packed in even more. So you can see we made it up to the right level on both walls going down the ramp. And now we are at the point where we can continue on our north walls and overlap these sections to really lock in these tie-in points and continue up on the west wall using our kind of new mound of dirt over there. So we're going to do that. You'll see that work shortly, and then we'll check in a little bit to see how it's going. Alrighty, you just saw us doing that layer, which goes ahead and locks in the wall we did yesterday in our work session along the ramp with the north wall even more. So I overlapped it. What's really cool about these bags, it's just, you know, earthen material, native soils mixed together, but it's so sculptural because you wet it and form it, and then once you pack it into that position, it's going to stay there so that when we go to plaster and everything, we can get an overall shape to the walls, which is really cool. It's kind of fun to play with. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but what we're trying to do here with the north wall buildup is we're trying to get high enough on these walls so that we can go ahead and put our plastic on the roof sooner rather than later, because we've got a lot of work to do on the walls, obviously. But while we continue to work on those walls, we could have the garden growing in here, but it's going to be better to do that once the plastic is on and at least some of the heat is staying in overnight. So the reason we moved kind of to the north end, not only to incorporate our ramp area, but also the north end is the deepest to the natural grade here. And so when we get to our tamper, which is about 3.5 feet high, once we get the bags up to dirt level, natural grade level up here, and we're trying to tamp on top of this, the top of the tamper will be hitting the roof material in this area because it's so close if we have the roof on. So we're trying to get this part done to the top of the rim before we put our plastic on. Once we get to about right here, the grade drops off enough so that we could be tamping that top layer even if the roof plastic is covering us. It won't be in the way, it won't be blocking the tamper handle from compacting those bags. So we're trying to get this on and up before we do the rest of it so that we can cover it, start growing, and then continue to do the walls and the finishings along that way, because seeds will work even through the night. So that's what we're working on. We decided to do that first and try to get ourselves ahead of the game so that we can continue on our slow progress even while things are growing. So we're going to continue that next, and you'll see us on this section. Alrighty, that's the look of it. Got that corner up now and tied in to our ramp wall. I left the tamper standing right there so that you kind of see what I was talking about a few minutes ago. When we get up to bags on that level, that tamper is exactly as high as the roof, so there's no room to really bring it up and drop it down. It doesn't maybe look like it on camera, but I'm lifting that a foot or two in the air each time I ram it into those bag sections. So really need some room to put some gravity and force down on those bags. So that's what we're working on. We're getting close. It's much easier, in my opinion at least, being the receiver of the dirt buckets to do from top to bottom like this, because now every row we go up, we're getting closer and closer, and that gap is shrinking. So we're going to keep going. You'll see that next. I think we're going to do 2 rows here and then jump down onto this level just to keep on that side and keep it consistent. So that's what it's looking like. I'll show you this and talk to you in a few. All right, we have now finished those sections and we're back where we started. So now we're going to overlap here, go to the corner and work our way around probably to about here, and then have some lunch because it's that time of day. Okay, it is time for us to break for lunch. You can see we are getting somewhere. We're getting high enough up on this wall too where we're beginning to come to a point where we can come behind the vertical members. So I've been able to wrap the bags around in that way. And pretty soon we may be able to do longer strips of bags behind the poles at some level pretty soon. Few more rows up, we'll be able to do longer runs, which is very exciting. And then from inside the greenhouse, you'll have this effect once it's plastered of the earthen wall, plaster wall going up and retreating, and then the poles kind of growing up out of the wall structure to support our roof made of plastic. So we are getting there. I am feeling great about the way it's going, and we're going to keep going. I don't know what you'll see next, but we're having lunch, and that'll be it for today's video portions. And then we'll see what comes next on this update for you guys. All right, new day for us. You can tell we're having some clouds and some rain, which is wonderful to work in. So in the shadow here, you can see that I have overlapped the wall again. I'm going to do one more layer on this side, and then we're going to do the same thing on that side. And then we will continue to build this wall and this wall until we're basically at ground level. I'm very excited about this progress, and the bags in the rain have set up nicely. Everything is nice and solid and looking good. All right, we've made it up to here on the ramp. Thought I'd give you a view kind of down the ramp so you can see the slope and all of that. We've made it up to here. I have this very small gap down here to fill before I overlap it with a bag this way, one of the large bags. And I have a little bit of this extra small bag, so I'm going to do a little bit to fill this gap and just make it nice and solid before I go that way. Okay, that's how I filled that little space with a little leftover bag and a rock. You can see I was able to wedge it in there nice. And then when it comes time to cover this with a large bag, it'll lock all that in nicely, just as it did on the layers below. So we have made a lot of progress. This entire ramp section is looking wonderful. It's holding up great. I'm loving that we got a little rain in the midst of this week's work. Nice surprise, and it helps with the bag setting up more slowly. So that's great. I hope you enjoyed this update. I sure enjoy sharing it with you. I hope you plan to come back next week. It's time for John and I to take a water break, but we're going to get right back at it on this side because we are bound and determined to get these walls high enough to put that plastic on the top as soon as possible. It's getting cooler. It feels great outside, but we want to keep the warm in for growing in here. So we're going to be working on that next week. Hope you plan to join us back for the next update here at Wiki Up Knoll Off Grid. And I thank you for joining us. And if you've stuck around this long for the end of the video, thank you for being here as usual. And we will see you next week for what comes next.